To introduce myself here a little bit, my name is Kat. I'm from Meadow Creek Dairy. We are a grass-based artisan cheesemaking company planted in the Blue Ridge Mountains. So about 4 hours away from Richmond, but we're still pretty local to you guys. My parents, Helen and Rick, founded the dairy 36 years ago. This is our 26th year making cheese. The dairy has been seasonal since 1992, so for over 30 years. Kind of what I would like to talk about a little bit is what is seasonality, and particularly what it means for us as a dairy farm and what seasonality does for us. Everything has a season. At root, the way we like to think of it, we're all harvesting sunlight. That's pretty much the name of the game. Grass has a season, cows have a season, and what we try and do with our operation, we kind of match these two up. So starting in spring is our calving season. Starts in March and kind of lasts through May. During that 60-day period, we're going to calve out 135, I think it was actually close to 140 calves this year. So pretty hot, fast and furious there. And the cheese make starts when we have enough cows calved and when the cows are on grass, which is usually around the 1st of April. So, why do we do it this way? Well, a cow has to have a calf to produce milk. So that's kind of our starting thing. We don't like to make cheese when the cows aren't on grass because it's basically a quality thing for us. We want the best quality milk we can get, the cleanest milk we can get, and the healthiest cows. So what the game we're trying to play with calving specifically in the spring is matching this curve. So grass growth follows a pretty predictable curve every year, depending on the weather, which you never can predict. You've got this big spring flush right around April and May, and then it starts to dwindle down with a little bump down there in September. Well, a cow's milk production after she has a calf also follows a fairly predictable curve. So you've got this big bump in milk production right after she calves. And that's also the time when she's going to need the most food because she's producing the most milk. She's expecting to be feeding a calf. And that's, she's just kind of going all out at that point. So we're trying to match that to when there's the most grass. It's not a perfect match. So as we move into summer, I'll talk a little more about how to manage that. So the first thing, obviously, as you can see here, we take a lot of hay off to manage those kind of extra peaks. And that is our stored feed for winter. There's no grass. We'll get into that too. The rest of the demand and just kind of the general variation of which there's always a lot, we handle through what's called management intensive grazing. So this is a system where we break our fields into paddocks, and the paddocks are further broken up into what we call breaks. Cows get a fresh break every 12 hours. So every 12 hours, they're on a new piece of grass. The size of that depends on the time of year, what the pastures, what kind of pastures we're looking like, how many cows are running, etc. So this helps us get through the summer slump because we'll have grass that grew a little earlier in the year, or slow growing grass will move the cows a little slower through the fields. But it's also really good. It's really good for the cows to have that fresh spot every day, and it's really good for the pastures. You can see the cows are enjoying themselves. When cows are on the same patch of grass all the time, what they tend to do is graze their favorite species down to the dirt, and then it dies, and they're stuck with the stuff they don't like as much. It's also true that the intense grazing like this really builds the root structure of these grasses. They are deep rooted. You don't get very much erosion. We have really healthy fields, and it builds up a lot of organic matter in the soil. And that's becoming more and more important because organic matter is also known as carbon. So these fields are carbon sinks, which is becoming increasingly important as we're looking to try and manage climate change, just kind of as a global thing. So that's the summer, which we are just moving into now. Happy first day of summer. I hope everyone's staying a little cool though. Then as we move into the fall, though, obviously we get one last bump, and then both the milk production and the grass growth slow down. It's getting cooler, the days aren't as long, and for the cows, they are both hitting that kind of natural slump where they're just slowing down anyway, and they're also pregnant. So a lot more of their resources are going towards growing that cow, and a lot less towards milk production. And then finally, we move all the way into winter. Cows go onto a stored feed and hay during this time, but they also dry off. We stop milking them entirely for 3 months. And that gives them space to just kind of hang out, eat, grow that calf, take a good long break. We also stop milking and we stop making cheese, so the humans get a break too, which we really appreciate. So, those are the kind of the elements of seasonality for us. We're trying to match that curve, and we're trying to make sure everybody both works really hard, but also gets their break. Through 3 of the 4 seasons, we are making cheese. Compared to the farm, the work we do in the cheese house is much less seasonal variation day to day. It's kind of always the same. All of our cheeses start out we add cultures. They sit for about an hour culturing. And then we do what's called renneting, which coagulates the milk into a solid. And then we cut that solid into curds and whey. So after that, the process starts to vary quite a bit more. So what you're seeing here is Grayson hoop. Grayson is very lightly cooked and it's not pressed at all. So we train, we're continuing to drain whey out of the curds through this process, but we're relying entirely with Grayson on gravity to do it. So the first thing we have to do is flip the Grayson immediately after drain to try and make sure that it drains evenly. And it's going to get flipped 4 more times after this. So it's kind of high maintenance. The other 2 cheeses are pressed, which means we put them under weight to force the curd out or force the whey out of the curd. But the Grayson, it just gets thrown around a lot. And so then after the cheese room, after the cheese make, this stuff moves into the cellar. Again, Grayson here is our high maintenance child. To get that beautiful red rind, it needs to be washed. It starts out white, like you can kind of see here, and it starts out being washed 3 times a week with this bacterial morge, which contains the bacteria which basically are going to create that red rind. And then we move down to twice a week and once a week, but it's still a lot of labor. The Appalachian, which is the other cheese we're going to taste today, is our easy child. We have what's called a bloomy rind on it. It just grows. All we do is flip this cheese once a week, and it naturally goes from, again, those pretty, yellow, white cheeses to this big, fluffy cheese lump, which is fantastic. It's so low maintenance. And we have 2 varieties of the Appalachian. It's the same cheese. One is aged somewhere between 3 and 5 months usually, and one is aged 8 months and up. But they pretty much don't really change on the outside. It's only on the inside. These are the extra aged cheeses. They look a little more raggedy, but they're still the same. And then a quick look. This is our final cheese. We're not going to taste this today, but our Mountaineer. Similar rind to the Grayson, but completely different format.